Hey, before we dive into today's episode of The Secrets in the Powder Room, imagine growing up when nature bursts with life, but your self-expression is held back. It's February, the month of love, and while everyone's celebrating romance, remember that love begins with you. Today's episode with Kristina explores the journey of transforming restrictions into freedom through movement, self-love, and healing. Let's uncover how dance can reconnect with your body and help you heal from past trauma. Welcome to The Secrets in the Powder Room, where we share stories and open up conversations about all the secrets women are forced to keep out of fear and shame. I'm Louise Bryant, professional certified coach, intuitive eating counsellor, and trauma-informed domestic abuse specialist and survivor. We're here to support you on your healing journey and help you feel like you're not alone. This is not to be a replacement of your own professional, medical, or legal advice. This podcast contains adult language and content. Listener discretion is advised. Today we're going to be speaking to the amazing Kristina. Kristina is a dance teacher, artist, raised in rural, conservative Lithuanian family and shaped in vibrant Brighton and London. She's a DV survivor, solo parent, party events facilitator and performer. She is also an awesome friend of mine and she's going to come on the podcast today and we're going to talk about self-love as it's coming up for Valentine's Day, and we're going to talk about our relationships with ourselves and our beautiful bodies, and I can't wait to get started. So hello, Kristina.
Hello. I can't wait to get started too.
Well, let's get into this. So can you tell me a little bit about your journey as a yoga teacher and a dancer and what inspired you to help women connect with their bodies and their sexuality?
Sure. Yeah, I was thinking about it actually another day, and I was thinking, my God, it actually started from the very beginning. When I was growing up, I spent a lot of time in nature and just being in Lithuania. Lithuania is very rich in, it's just a lot of sexual energy in there. Like in nature, there's a lot of fertile soil, there's a lot of clean waters, there's a lot of greenery and fruits and vegetables. And it's like, as a child, I saw this like blooming sexual energy around me. I used to sleep under the trees, but also I sensed this awful restriction in people in their sexual energy, and I strongly believe it's some kind of trauma we all share, maybe from suppression, from like Russia, and it's just everyone is a little bit rigid, and that's quite kind way to say it. Like very like you can even see in our faces we have really strong jaw lines because we like have our teeth together. So anyway, being like really sensitive child and noticing that kind of rigidness like really puzzled me. And when I started doing dance at school, there was something like unblocked, and I felt like can flow through me. That's something similar like in nature naturally does. And yeah, so that was a big intro, but basically that was like beginning where I felt like, oh, like that's something I feel like at home. I feel like alive. I feel like I can be authentic and powerful. I don't know, like yeah. So also, when I remember I performed for the very first time, like in a quite big performance, and what I noticed that it's not only my energy changes, but also audience energy changes. So you see these like rigid Lithuanians coming along, kind of all like, oh, I don't need to be here to watch my child scold aside. I have work to do, and then I remember like dancing and like connecting with this, with music, and I just feel something lighter, and 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 people were coming to me after the show and saying to me like, there was something that I was watching and I felt so alive, and I could just feel like I know I felt it too, and like I felt like, oh my God, like that's something needed. And especially like the women used to come to me, and I like way before I got in that extreme
Yeah.
abusive relationship and my sexuality was really challenged, I noticed a lot of suppression in women's sexuality. And when it was unblocked, it was just so nice. It's like, like I can breathe. So yeah. And since then, I never stopped dancing really. I never really stopped, and I was really obsessed with. I was kind of like a golden child, and I really immersed myself into science. Wanted to understand how body works, and also being in a last pagan country in Europe, I kind of like saw this like connection with nature, and yeah. So then I moved to UK and studied dance like professionally. Finished university like with performance art, and again was a lot of body work. And then when I was in abusive relationship, actually, then I studied yoga because I felt like I needed self-help. And it was really interesting because with yoga, it felt like it didn't feel like learning something new. It felt like remembering. Yeah, so it kind of came really natural to me. And since I'm obsessed with, still am with learning, also just got qualified in personal training as well. Maybe a little bit waste of time because I really kind of knew everything, but it was
Okay.
like gathering all the kind of references what already my body knows and kind of know like, oh, I'm not imagining this. This is actually works.
Yeah. And how do you think these tools help in sort of more helping women with their self-confidence and self-love even?
It's pretty simple really to me because confidence is, I can talk about like whole day.
We have an hour.
Yeah, exactly. So when we think about confidence, we already have image of someone looking certain way and moving certain way, right? Training your body and being able to move in different dynamics, it's like you accepting each part of emotions in you, so you're not feeling ashamed of any. Because like in dance, like even the ugliest versions of you, ugliest emotions can be art. So you kind of start loving all parts of you. And and obviously physical side of training, when you train dance, you it's very symmetrical training. It's balancing your body. Like in other sports, people usually get like stronger right bicep or something. In dance, it's very like all about alignment. So it's basically getting balanced body, and you give that room for your soul, like to get nourished, because you're actually listening what you're feeling. And I feel like we live in this society where we just chronically not listening to our bodies, like we're not listening to each other. We just don't listen at all.
Or listen to other people's opinions of your body, especially when you've come from abusive relationships. It can be a
Yeah.
really good disconnect there, can't it? Or you've been sexually abused as a child or as a young adult, or men have,
Yeah, and I think
sexualized you.
yeah, exactly. And I think when like we don't have a very good relationship with emotions, and we see some emotions as nearly a sin, like don't be angry, don't be sad, or like we're afraid of pain and we try to numb it, eat it, distract ourselves. And here you are, you come to your dance class, or at least, or you can just play music in your living room, and then all is left is just you and your feelings, and you can move through it, and you can embody it, and you can like remove that block.
Interesting, because we've been talking about shame. Obviously, the podcast is the secrets we keep out of fear and shame. And you mentioned shame and how there's no shame around dancing. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit more for me?
Yeah, I have like two answers about it. So one pops to my mind. It was just a recent experience of mine where I recently gained some weight, and I just preferred the way I look, and I just a little bit lighter. And I looked at my video of dance in a dance class recently, and I was like, maybe I'm okay. Well, oh, this is really nice shape. And I was just taking some screenshots, and and then I thought, okay, but like I feel now anxious about the rest of time between these screenshots. How did they look? Did they look like stupid? Did they look weird? Did they look ugly? Did they look fat? And then I kind of forced myself to look through it to these not so pretty parts, like not so perfect lines. And then I thought,
almost befriending your not so pretty parts.
yeah. And I was like, oh my God, like actually it's so nice. It's more nice than that striking pose. It's actually in this between this more real, especially when body moves to the music. Like music is such a balanced vibration. Like it's not like it's like or we hear even animals hear when there's something off pitch. So when we hear like when this balance vibration, like when we dance to it, we also balance ourselves. And these like ugly bits, they also become it's just piece of art. Like artists like see like old wooden toilet in a woods that is so rotten it's about to fall down, and they draw it as a beautiful picture. So when you dance and like something comes out, like some emotion comes out, uh, it also it comes up like something valid. They say like art is best when it comes from pain, isn't it? There's some sort of saying. Instead of trying to contract something in our body and out of shame, if we express it in some kind of harmonious way, and like then it disappears and you start loving that part of you.
Great art comes from great pain.
Yeah. Thanks. That's the English one.
Yeah, maybe it sounds better in Lithuanian, more beautiful. So, what do you think the correlation is here when you're thinking about trauma or abuse? So, say, for instance, a woman's been through trauma or sexual abuse or domestic abuse. How do you think that dancing
Okay.
can support their healing journey?
So the way I see trauma is something happens to us and we can't process in that very moment. So like a part of us is stuck in that moment and they get triggered and we back in that moment and we feel unsafe and we feel like chased by a lion and it's horrible. If you move your body and you feel that feeling, that emotion, and you create that motion. It's not an accident that it's nearly the same word.
Yeah, that's called emotion because it's emotion that needs to process.
Right. So your body starts processing. So the way like if trauma comes outside of the body and it lands in the body and stays in the body. So it really makes sense to start then going backwards to go back where you want to traumatize. So then moving body, it sounds very like woo-woo, but if you think about a person who is paralyzed and deaf and traumatized, has PTSD, so we know that would be much harder for that person to recover than person who can dance. Right? Like we know, like you can just breathe and you can notice your body, you can feel it, you can move through it. Like we know it would be much easier, and we could hear the music. We know how it makes us feel good. Like we see in a lots of people, if they have strong emotion hold within, when they dance to the song that it really like touches them, they like best crying, or they finally remove that out of them. But also like thinking just from like scientific side, it's just we know that bilateral movement is good for trauma treatment, right? And there's plenty of that in dance, or just learning new patterns, new moves.
Sorry, just want to just say, if anyone doesn't know what bilateral movement is, it's when we get the right and the left side of the body working at the same time together and they synchronize, getting your right and left side of your brain working. And obviously this is through dance, but you can also do this through anything that gets your right and left side working.
So yeah, and same with like yoga as well. Like yoga has a lots of wisdom that comes with it that basically explains what dance is as well. It's just another somatic way of dealing with trauma.
Yeah, and that's somatic movements and getting the body movement. And it's, you know, even when we do our courses, when I do like the domestic abuse course, we get up and we swim. If something's happening within that session that's quite heavy, that could potentially re-traumatize people, I get them all up to move. I get them to stand, we wiggle around, we breathe, we inhale, and we just move our bodies. I get them to jump up and down and just move and dance and and I say to them, turn off your cameras if you feel silly, but you know, there's no shame here. We're all, you know, in this together. Just move your body however that feels good.
Yeah.
Just to kind of in that moment, just relieve that. But if you're doing this as a regular, like you're going to a dance class, or you're making a point of going, well, I'm going to move my body today, I'm going to dance today, or you know, have that dance class. I think it's really powerful, isn't it, to have that consistently.
And like, exactly. And like, even thinking, going through a court process like that lasted, I don't know, like 3 years maybe. I even lost the count of years. Like, if I didn't have dance, like, I don't think I would have won.
It's powerful.
It's just that's so true, because it was really impossible to win in a way. But because you basically elevate yourself to a different vibration, you have this tool and you're just like, no, I'm not gonna be this. I'm gonna step back, look. You have this different perspective when you are not stuck in that rigid body of yours that you surrounded. This is me, Kristina, who I'm scared and I'm slouching forward and I've been abused, and or whatever story I have about me. Like, when you take that character, give a break to that character, let's say, and you move and you get into, so yeah, like what you mentioned is really good, like shaking and wiggling. But then the next step would be introducing circles and spirals. And then again, it's like activates a little bit different energy. This also Shakti energy. And then waves, spine is also like moving the spine. That's our like brain basically in there. Like, it just activates something that we don't quite understand yet. Like, science is just a little to get there yet. But is getting there at least. Like, I used to have really horrible stomach aches, and I would make myself go dance, and every time it would disappear.
I mean, that's what we used to be taught at school. I know, like sort of periods. I remember the girls would come in with a note to say, I can't do PE today because I've got my period and I've got tummy ache. And our PE teacher was like, that's rubbish. The best thing you can do for your period is to exercise. And it's so true. If I've got real bad period pains, when I'm in the gym, I don't feel my period pains. And then as soon as I come back indoors and sit on the sofa, guess what? Then period pains are there again. And it's just when you kind of stop. It's the movement that kind of helps you to not be thinking about it. That pain just goes away. I mean, I have a lot of pain in my hand, for instance. And when I'm exercising, unless like I'm trying to lift a weight or something, but the pain it's not there. It's gone. And then when you stop, and same with like psychological pain as well, isn't it? If you're concentrating on something else, your brain is now unable to think of them two things at once. And if there's something going on, if you're concentrating, and even if you're following, like I used to be a Zumba instructor, and I would say to people, you know, you're so busy trying to watch what to do with your legs, with your arms, go this way, go that way. There's no time to be thinking about the stress of what's happening in your life. It's just have fun, let it all out. And
And I think sometimes our ego is so scared of losing that character we've been playing and losing the problems we've been complaining about, that is so scared that if we just gonna stop, like, we're going to like die, like our ego is gonna die. But then getting yourself into this, like if let's say you go to a dance class, you have to become that character. So let's say if you go to heels class, like, you have to become this goddess, sexy queen. And it doesn't matter that you feel like, I don't know, like insecure and bloated or just like not feeling sexy at all. Like, you just leave that behind the door and just follow instructions, and you don't think too much about how you're gonna get there. You just follow the steps, and then you move to the music, and then voila, you're already that person. So then, is you really that person, or you're really that person behind the door, but actually you're not one of them, or both? It just kind of takes you out as like, oh, okay, I am both. and these are just parts I play, and you just feel like detached from ego, I guess, and connected to, we could say connected even to God, or
Yeah, you're connected to self, aren't you?
yeah, like to your soul.
Yeah. So how does this help women embrace their sexuality? I mean, I heard you mention before about heels, and I also followed you on Instagram, so I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. But can you maybe explain to listeners what heels is?
Okay, so heels, heels, heels is only one space where I wear heels. A heels class. So basically, it is quite new dance style. It's kind of like commercial dance style with heels on, and it is a safe place where women can just feel sensual, because we live in a very masculine world. Like, you have to complete the task, you have to walk certain way, you have to be smart, you have to be kind of cynical, and you cool, kind of this kind of certain trend. And if you are this like goddess, kind of like sensual and sexy, you might not necessarily get very good feedback from environment, because you might trigger the hell out of people, because most of women are suppressing that sexuality, and most of men are terrified. So I'm not saying not to do that, but I'm just saying that these dance classes are super safe environment for that energy to just run free, like feel it, and really, like the room full of women who just touching themselves is just, and kind of adoring each other. I think, wow, she's gorgeous. When we're all warming up, and we're doing this, I don't know, like circles with our hips, you just feel this energy fills with some power. I mean, we're talking about removing our uterus, that is like portal of life. Like, you just feel this power, I guess. Yeah, so I find them super, super empowering.
Yeah.
But also, I prefer teaching a little bit more free dance, where women would just connect with the emotions and to improvise rather than follow the choreography. Because what I find is that a lot of women, they want to look like this person on Instagram or something, and if the body is just rigid, yeah, like, then you just gonna get overwhelmed by it's like, oh, I can't do this, or like, oh, I'm not flexible enough, or do the same movement and just still not feel it. So it's a little bit like kind of sexual abuse towards yourself. Like, like the body says no, and you're still doing it.
Yeah.
So
When I was a gymnast when I
it's
was
like a
younger. What's coming
slippery
up for me
line
as you're
here,
saying this? When
because you
I was
want
about, oh gosh,
your
like when I
body
was
to
3
give
years old, I
you
must have been
your
4,
body's
and
consent.
we all did gymnastics, but then we were sent onto the floor together just to dance. There was no choreography. They just sent us to dance, and I remember being so scared and not knowing what to do, how to dance and how to feel my body. And I don't know whether this has gone on to think I've got a bit of social anxiety sometimes in situations, and I feel, unless I've got, like, if I'm teaching, if I'm talking, if I've got something to say, if I know what I'm talking about, I can stand in front of anyone and talk. But if I don't know what I'm doing, I get this massive fear. And I know a lot of women might be hesitant to do something like that because of the shame of exploring their own sexuality and being open to just feeling like that. So kind of, what's the first steps that you would recommend for someone who's feeling like that? Because you say about freestyling and just feeling your body. Like, what would be some first steps that someone in like that might feel like that?
Mm-hmm. I think the first step, I think, when we think about sexuality, and when we think, maybe have in mind this dance, I would start from actually not even dancing yet, but just, well, depends where you are on a spectrum, because like we all have been castrated to some degree. We've been shamed about our sexuality. Most of us, like probably all of us. Like if anyone is listening to this and they haven't, like I just so happy. Like you are something.
You're my inspiration.
So
but sorry, just to go back, this could come from childhood though, couldn't it?
Oh yeah.
And I think if I was to be any sexuality as a child, even if I had a boyfriend or anything like that, my mum used to be a bit, oh, she's got a boyfriend. And there wasn't any kind of that sort of freedom. And my mum's very reserved in that way. Whereas I remember a friend's mum of mine, she was an only child, and her mum was very open about, young girls exploring their bodies, and her mum would she wouldn't shame it. Whereas I know if my mum would, I couldn't talk to my mum about stuff like that, or our periods or anything like that. It was very closed. Having a parent, having a surrounding, having your environment that you grow up in can make or break how you feel about your body as you're growing up, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. So like I remember about my first probably that was like one of the first experiences like of my masturbation. I remember I touched my vulva and I thought, oh, that feels nice. And then my mom saw it and she was like, oh, put your hands on the blanket, and she just put like keep them up on the blanket, and she was just so scared. And I thought, oh, I must do something wrong. And then that memory just stays with you, because like, oh, there's something scary with my body, and like I need to be afraid or careful. But then I remember myself masturbating in fields.
Out in nature. Awesome.
Yeah, so I would, yeah, like in trees. Like I don't know how old I was, but I was quite young, and I used to just spend summers at my like grandmother's land, and we used to have this huge grass, and I would just eat these wild berries, get quite high probably, and I would just feel like energy like from like pulsing earth, and it's just so basically to come back to. Maybe some tips for women, like how they can connect to their sexuality. Just spend more time in nature, because all nature fucks. Like you look anywhere, you look at the blossoms of of the flowers, you see how these flowers just open and they juice and they smell and they seduct bees to come and like suck the nectar. And it's just, or like, I don't know, waterfalls, anywhere where you're around, like it's just energy, that sexual energy is everywhere. And I think it's only people, and obviously the animals that we abuse sexually. Just kind of raping cows.
Who's
and
this?
Stuff.
Sorry, where are you going now with this?
Yeah, it's just people are. Yeah, I'm just saying that only people have problem with sexuality, because like and also like what we do to other animals. I mean, the way like we literally raping cows and other animals, like this is like it's normal that we don't feel normal.
Yeah,
like it's normal that we have a problem with sexuality, because we live in society where it is feared, it is shamed, and it is the sacredness of it is taken away. So yeah, spend more time in nature, I'd say. Is a big, it can really help. But also just notice what excites you, right? Like we like it's just it's that what turns you on. It doesn't have to be sexual, but essential. Like, oh, what music makes you like feel butterflies, or what smells make you like, so good, or what taste you enjoy, and just give yourself permission to enjoy that.
Love that.
And then I think when you are in that state of mind, then you will feel like moving. And if you go to that dance class, you're going to enjoy like, I don't know, stroking your thigh. Because you need to get yourself used to being okay to pleasure.
Yeah, I remember in Emily Nagoski's book, Come As You Are, she said about meeting your clitoris, and knowing where the clitoris is like really important, but knowing where your clitoris is, well, that's power. And but it's also like finding that part, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's like going into nature and doing all the things, dancing. But if you really don't know your body and really don't get connected with your own body as a woman, there's so much shame around that. I know you kind of touched on that with the self-pleasure bit, but why is it that men share porn through their WhatsApp groups and women don't even talk about sex or their sexuality? And it's okay for men to do it and it's acceptable. And why don't women be more open about our sexuality and our self-pleasure?
Yeah. I mean, it's been about 2,000 years of programming us to be ashamed of it. So
We need to change the system. We need to change our daughters.
and
Our daughters need to change their daughters.
so it is getting better, I think. I think the problem is that while why men are sharing it and why women don't is because it's so much of, I don't know how else to say than abuse. Like it's just a lot gaslight, a lot of shaming, a lot of serious systematical abuse towards women's sexuality. Like where like patriarchy is just made like, oh, we are the stronger sex, even if we have a tiny little flick in our balls and we like nearly dead and we're just giving birth out of our vaginas and we're fine. Like vocabulary, even like we need to work on our vocabulary. Like if we translate Sanskrit words about women down there or like it's very different, for example discharge, or it sounds so like, oh, you have infection. Well, if you translate Eastern terminology, it would be like goddess, or in immortality juice, elixir. But then it sounds, but maybe it's just poetic. Maybe that's what it is, because this is where life begins. So it's kind of is immortality to this family line. So I think even starting from this like different terminology already has a big power. Or like, do you know what vagina even means? Like,
No.
where does it come from?
No, go on.
It's a sheath for the sword, like that thing you would put the this is what's to call vagina. It's basically like a pocket for penis. Like it's so crazy. Like, ugh. like like not just pockets for penises, right?
No. It's awful.
It is.
I'm never using the word vagina again.
Like seriously, every time I say it, it's like, ugh. So I feel like we need to give some respect to our body, and not only our like area between the legs, but also the breasts and also whole body. But like, what happened to our breasts? It's like they're not even owned by us anymore. As we told how they're supposed to look like, we told that ours, oh my god, if they had children, we ruined. It's like, wait a minute, it's a part that is like we have a squishy, like like a fidget, like run away.
Squishy
Like,
that the kids play with. Do you know what, Sonny? You laugh about that. I remember for a Christmas present that I got, I think it was my husband, I might have got it for one, and they were stress boobies, and they were exactly them squishies, and they were like shaped like boobies, and they were called stress boobies, and you could get them like as Christmas presents in the men's section at one of the clothes shops.
Men, but wait a minute, what about giving yourself a breast massage, putting some oil and massaging it, and like listening to the like music and really enjoy it? Like, what's wrong with that? Why we're not allowed to do that? Like, we definitely are allowed, but an interesting story about it. I used to hate my boobs after giving birth, and then I was like, why am I hating them? And I'm gonna stop. So I started doing this like clay masks, and then I started like massaging it, and oh my god, like I felt like it got to desired shape of mine, or maybe the way I look at it. I just really like my boobs now. And it's like, it ain't mine. I don't care if men like it or not. Like, if they idiots if they don't like it, because they're gorgeous. So,
Absolutely love that. I love that you said that you had this. I don't know if you said hate for your boobs, but you disliked your boobs after childbirth. Then you started to have this relationship with them, and then you just started. They got the desired shape, or is it just in your mind? It's how you look at them. If you look at
yeah,
your boobs, go, they're disgusting. They're saggy. I used to always say my kids would suck the
yeah,
life out of my boobs, but my boobs are like my best asset. I love my boobs, and I think that whenever I kind of feel a little bit negative about the rest of my body, I've got great boobs, and I think, like you say, it
it
changes the
definitely
whole way you
does.
think about yourself to just kind of that's just it's mine. It's not because I want to be attracted to the opposite sex or anything like that. They're just
Yeah.
mine, and yeah,
And if you think about it,
yeah,
if you love your chest, you're going to hold your chest high. You're going to put your shoulders back. You're going to melt them away from the ears. You're going to engage your core. Your pelvic floor is going to lift. You're going to breathe bigger breaths because your diaphragm is going to be able to move. You're going to increase, your sympathetic nervous system is going to get activated, your anxiety will go down, your cortisol will go down. So your belly will start become smaller because if you have a lot of cortisol, you build. And so it just has this whole domino effect.
and that obviously has a flip side, because if you hate your breasts, then you're retracting them, your posture's low, you're scrunching your diaphragm, your
Yes,
pelvic floor isn't engaged. I'm just thinking about
yes,
what you've just said, and then it's adding, you're
yes,
stressed, you're adding cortisol to your stomach, hence in make you more bloated, and it's just, yeah,
yes,
it has the total opposite effect.
yeah. And I mean, it goes really bad. I mean, 1 in 4 mothers have prolapse by like research, but to be fair, I think a number is higher. So that is when basically your organs slowly start falling down through your vagina. I mean, that's the worst case scenario. This is the end. But if your pelvic floor is not functioning properly, like things starting drooping down and you feel like you feel like everything is like you feel the energy down, and then you also feel like you said, like shoulders like closing your heart, like you can't connect with people, you feel ashamed, you feel afraid. And then they say, oh, like, oh, you don't look like a mom. Like they usually mean that you have that, like your shoulders are forward and your heart is closed. That is like a mom's look, because we are so lonely and because we so like our sexuality even more attacked as mothers.
So could you maybe give, because I know you spoke a bit about the pelvic floor, and I know that's something that obviously is a whole, probably another podcast that we can talk about in like I know your passion around the pelvic floor, and you've spoke to me about apps you can get on your phone where you put stuff inside you and play games, and it makes you like, you have to play games with your pelvic floor, which is, like I said, a whole nother thing. But is there any kind of things or advice that you can give the listeners to maybe just get them started with all of this? I know we've said a lot, and maybe people are like, right, I need to dance, and I think that's kind of hopefully the hope that people start to think, I'm going to start
Yeah.
getting my one. But is there any kind of tips maybe that you could give to just to get people to start doing something?
Yeah, so I think I already mentioned and I'll stick to that. So like depends where you are, but so really good actually tip is to see what triggers you. So if you see a woman dancing and you think, who do you think who does she think she is? Or like, I don't know, like, there's some kind of like, ugh. Like if you feel that, that's a good indicator that we are suppressing that part of ourselves and shaming that part of ourselves within. So it's like a good kind of indicator. So it's like, okay, let's take a few breaths and think, okay, like what maybe I'm jealous about it, and then giving yourself, delivering that to yourself. So maybe, like I mentioned before, just noticing what does turn you on, or like what excites you, like, and just giving that to yourself. So and enjoying that moment. And then also with a dance, if you need to feel that song. So and sometimes you just listen to the song and it just, you feel something in your heart, like, oh, you feel connected. So, and then just allow yourself to just do some circular motions, like move your hips in round circles, or your chest in round, and creating these like spirals. Try to learn waves is fun, like waves up and down, like they're just, again, just, it just takes you somewhere. And if you can do these waves, if you can do the circles, then you feel like you're not really afraid of dancing, because we usually feel afraid of dancing. We think we're gonna look stupid, or like, I don't know, like something is off. Is when we stiffen our spine and we just move our arms and legs, and we look like we're doing aerobics. So that's not dancing. Like if hips and shoulders, and like we start feeling our belly around, like kind of, you think about belly dance, like these kind of movements, like they really activate something, and they activate that safety within us.
What's your favorite? Do you have like a favorite track or a favorite song or any kind of genre of music that really kind of gets you? It's like, if I'm feeling like I need to do something, I can just put that on and dance away, that you could maybe recommend.
Oh, that's I get obsessed about different songs, and I just would listen to that one song for as long as one song. That's a tricky one. I know. I don't even know how to pronounce this artist. So it is Masego, or Masego, Masego plus FKJ.
We'll put a link in the show notes anyway. So do you plan on doing, I know you don't have any workshops at the moment, but I know you have big plans for the future, but do you have anything coming up, or how can people connect with you to stay up to date for anything that's up and coming and exciting that you might be offering?
I might be doing a heels class for this Valentine's, but that will be quite...
Is that online or in person?
In person. But it's not quite booked yet, so I don't want to promise, but there will be workshops coming up, and maybe then you can attach the links in future, if that's...
Absolutely. So just keep an eye, just check the notes, and when Kristina has some stuff to share, I'll be putting it all in the show notes. So thank you so much. Was there any kind of final thoughts, anything you want to add to the end of our show before we close up?
I guess I'm just thinking about like a woman who's listening, and if you're like, I don't know, but if you feel like, oh, I wish I was this more sensual, sexual, I don't know if that's come up, like let's give ourselves grace. Like, we're doing so good. Like, we're living in such a rigid and like world where this being attacked. So if we get these little moments where you can just feel sensual and feel safe in our bodies, that's already a huge achievement. Like, we're already doing really well. So like, let's give ourselves some grace.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Kristina did come and talk on our podcast before. She is on episode 8, Authenticity and Healing, the Aftermath of Domestic Abuse. If you want to go and have a listen to that, feel free to go and have a listen. It was an awesome podcast back when we first started. So thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you, and I can't wait to have you again.
Me too. Hey, pelvic floor. Hey.
Pelvic floor. That's our next one. Pelvic floor. Yes, definitely. Let's get it in the diary. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much, and I will see you soon. Thank you for listening to this episode of Secrets in the Powder Room podcast with me, Louise Bryant, and our wonderful guest, Kristina. If you found today's podcast helpful, please make sure that you like, subscribe, and share this podcast to anyone that you might feel would benefit from it. We're here to support you on your healing journey, and don't forget to download my free body love meditation, my special gift to you this Valentine's Day, to help you connect with yourself and adore your beautiful body. Stay tuned for more inspiring episodes, and remember, you're not alone in this journey. We'll see you soon.